Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cover 7 podcast. We are going to be breaking down this week the Cologne Centurions. They are hot. They are in the news for some good reasons, for some bad reasons. Let's break down the state of the franchise of the proud Cologne Centurions. Daniel, give me a quick synopsis of what do you think of Cologne so far this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, coming off a not great season, they started off well last year, throwing up some crazy numbers thanks to Jan Weinrich. And then, as you've said, in the offseason this year, they've been in the news for some poor reasons. Lost their head coach, a lot of changes. I don't think the future looks too bright for them right now, but maybe they managed to turn things around.
Absolutely. So, for those who haven't heard, head coach Khalil Carter, who was hired, I believe, in November of last year, has officially parted ways with the Centurions management and general manager David Drain. They will be promoting offensive coordinator Christos Lambropoulos from the offensive coordinator position to the interim head coach role. Daniel, you're familiar with Christos in the past. What do we know about this guy?
Yeah, I mean, he was the head coach in Ireland back in 2021, I believe, and he won the Coach of the Year award in the GFL at the time. And he did a really good job with Ireland. I mean, he took a quarterback that hadn't really played football before. He played Division One school, but he hadn't played football before. Managed to do some great recruiting with the local American air bases and really allowed that team to excel. So I think he's a good addition to the team.
Another little X factor I want to talk about before we jump into the schedule is kind of the state of Cologne football, because the Crocodiles from the German Football League are also moving on from their head coach. It was similar timing, a week after the news of Khalil Carter broke. And I just think the turmoil in the Crocodiles will actually play in the Centurions' favor big time. The guys that maybe were loyal to that head coach in the Crocodiles organization might jump ship now to the ELF because they were probably already eyeing it from this offseason on.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to that. Is the ELF a more attractive league to play in? As a player, 100%, it seems that way, right? I mean, I don't know why you would choose GFL over ELF. I mean, out of loyalty, like you said, I think we've seen it in Shrobish Hall as well, the Unicorns. A lot of those guys are leaving now, so it was kind of like loyalty to your coach. But now when coaches change, it's like, well, I want to go to a team where the lights are brighter, they've got better Instagram, and the kits look nicer. I don't know if the salaries are better. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. And I think for the local guys, they're probably getting paid a couple €100 anyway, so it's not life changing. It's more about just being on the biggest scene, right? And the ELF is the biggest scene right now. It is the biggest platform. And so, yeah, I think, as you've said, players are going to come over in their droves.
Yeah, and one thing we know about the Crocodiles organization is they have a really strong junior program. So as those guys get older, there's probably a decent class of talent that now moved from that junior program to the senior program. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of them will or already have joined the Centurions.
Yeah, it'd be interesting as well to see what the Cologne Centurions do with that, though, because as we've seen in Vienna in the past, Vienna Vikings, they've forced their players to sign, the junior programs forced their players to sign contracts where they can't play for other teams for the first 5 years, I believe it is, something along those lines. And so with Cologne, I'd be a bit annoyed if I was the manager running the Cologne Centurions and all my players, instead of going up to the senior team, were going over to the elf team. It'd be interesting to see what the Crocodiles do there. Sorry.
Yeah, we'll see. It's a little bit of turmoil, but they do have a new head coach who ELF fans are familiar with, Martin Hanselman from the old Stuttgart Surge. So, good luck to Martin in Cologne. Yeah, Christos did a great job in Saarland. He brings a really interesting story to Cologne, Australian and with Greek origins with that last name, as we know. He coached in Australia for many years, helped build up the football scene there, and has been in Germany coaching the last few years. Obviously, he had success. He led Saarland to the semifinals, their first ever semifinals in the history of Hurricanes football there, winning Coach of the Year in the process. and now he moves to the ELF as the offensive coordinator, and now just a few months later moves into that head coaching role. I think a guy like him might be set up for more success than Carter, just because he's coached in that European environment a long time, sort of that semi-pro environment for a long time before, while Carter really hasn't done that at this level.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. And you know what? I mean, the organization hasn't done amazing things over the last 2 years on the field, right? And so you could argue that it's the kind of injection of life that the team needs, right? Change of environment, change of coaches always like to bring in new morals, new values when they come in, new ethics, and I feel like him doing that might give the team the change they need.
Yeah, I think it was kind of unfortunate. Not that Carter was doing anything wrong. You saw that Cologne was trying to make some moves. They were doing their tryouts. They were holding, practices with their domestic players. However, it's been a tough off season because they've lost some key guys to the Rhine Fire, to other ELF franchises, around the league. We know they lost Marius Kenzie, Flamore Simon. I mean, there's some key German players that have left, Cologne for Dusseldorf, which is just a short drive away. What do you think about their kind of the guys they brought in and some of the talent drain that they've had so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think they have tried to replace a lot of the guys that left. Quite a few European imports. They brought in Chad Waldron again back in, Jay Jackson, Chris Wedderburn, three English guys that I know. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if they're impact players, but I'm sure they'll fill a role. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure they'll do their job on the field. So someone like Flamore Simon, who was a bit more of an impact player, is a bit of a switch up from him. And then on the American side, guy I'm really, really big on, Terran Robinson. Played in Istanbul last year, only for 6 games. I think he caught about 8 touchdowns and about over 800 yards. He was an absolute monster. Extremely underrated. He didn't play on a good team in Istanbul. So I think if they can get him going early, and he's had a whole off season this time, I think he can do some damage.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch him put together a whole ELF season on tape. Him and Isaiah Green, kind of an underrated duo towards the end of the ELF season, right? I mean, they made Istanbul fun to watch there. Um, Another guy I'm really excited, speaking of Istanbul, is Zachary Blair. This guy now is an ELF veteran, as you would say. Menace on special teams, blocking kicks. He's got to be one of the leading tacklers in the league. He's up there every year in tackles, over 100. Energy guy, a leader. I think he'll do really well as a captain on this Cologne defense.
Yeah, for sure. I think Zach is. I've spoken to him a few times. He seems like such an amazing guy as well. He seems so great. He's very committed to the team, committed to his teammates. Absolutely, as you said, monster push teams. He turns the ball over a lot, hustle like no one else. I just hope that he can show up maybe some of the secondary as well. I think dropping into coverage is something they'll need him to do. In Istanbul, we just saw him run down field a lot and just make a lot of tackles. I think in Cologne they might ask him to do a bit more of the coverage side of stuff. So it'd be interesting to see how he fares there.
Yeah, definitely. There's another guy coming in. Obviously, what's the most important position? Quarterback, right? Moving on from Jan Weinreich, the lone German quarterback in the ELF the last 2 seasons. He's out. They're moving with an American quarterback this year, so a little bit of a different offensive identity with Quentin Pounds leaving and Jan Weinreich leaving. They brought in Daniel Smith, a quarterback from Villanova. What do we know about Smith?
We know one thing, and he can do a forward flip pass amazingly. Yeah, I'm not sure how many people saw it, and I'm sure Alex will edit it in this clip now, where he basically rolls out to the side. For whatever reason, he trips over, and while doing a forward flip, he throws the ball like behind his back and scores a touchdown. It's the best thing you'll ever see in your life. But outside of that, he actually had a pretty solid career at Villanova, right? He did produce, he did play well, and even though Jan Heinrich was a great German quarterback, I feel like this is going to be an upgrade still. It cannot be anything but that. So, looks positive there.
Yeah, definitely. And Smith brings something that Jan Weinreich didn't have, and that's a dual threat attack. Smith is really athletic. We saw him run the ball a lot at Villanova, And he spent last year, the back half of the season, with Christos in Saarland. So these two already know each other. They know what they can get from each other. And obviously, Christos recruited him, I would imagine, to come to Cologne. So I think that chemistry will flow over well into next season. Another offensive player that made some waves last year is Dean Tanwani. What do we know about this, running back, Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, I was a big fan of him. Just a little. I remember Doug Martin back in the day, muscle hamster. Kind of reminds me of him there. Very low to the ground, very muscular, hard runner. Yeah, and he was. I think when he was first in the ELF, he was seen as a number two guy, kind of like one part of a really good one-two punch. But over the last couple of years, I think he's really established himself as a number one running back. He can do it all. He can catch it out of the backfield. He can run up the gut. He has got a bit of speed to him as well, but yeah, north to south runner, and he's going to run some people over and get some tough yardage. I really like him.
Absolutely. Another guy they're bringing back is Paul Leonard, the small wide receiver. He made some big plays. I mean, he looks like kind of a Cole Beasley type of guy out there in the slot. Caught 5 touchdowns, almost 600 yards last year. You know, him and Weinreich had some good chemistry going on. With that being said, let's jump into the 2023 Cologne Centurions schedule. Tough schedule, Daniel, in the Western Division. They have to play Paris, they have to play Hamburg, they have to play Frankfurt, and of course, the big bad bullies up north, the Rhine Fire. Initial thoughts on the schedule, Daniel?
They're going to lose a lot of games. I think Frankfurt, I'm not too high on Frankfurt, and I feel like if Cologne come with a good off season, play some good football, they can beat Frankfurt. But I cannot see them taking down the other three giants in that conference.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Speaking of week one, Paris at Cologne. Who you got on this one?
Paris. they can't. I'd be very surprised if anything but a loss. It's a new franchise, so maybe there's some hiccups along the way. A lot of these guys, even though they're French, haven't played together before as a team. Maybe they're from different French teams and different imports and so on. But the talent and the depth in the roster and the head coach makes me believe that they'll be prepared and makes me believe that they'll win big.
Yeah, I think if Cologne is going to pull off a big upset, this is their chance here. But the way things have gone in the early part of the preparation here, I wouldn't bet on them. Week two, Cologne travels to Prague. Going to give it to Cologne. We don't know what we have with Prague here, so Cologne. Yeah, I think they take this one on the road.
Yeah,
week three.
I agree.
You disagree?
No, I agree. I think.
Oh, okay.
I think Prague. I like Prague and I like Zach Harrow, but I feel like I don't know. I don't know how strongly I feel about their offense. I don't know if they can put some numbers up.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one. Stay tuned for Prague Lions State of the Franchise coming soon. Hamburg at Cologne. Who you got in this one?
Hamburg. Open and shut. That is, yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, week four, Rhine Fire at Cologne. Who you got?
Rhine Fire. Yeah, this is going to be a tough stretch for Cologne, but they're going to get some experience, I guess.
Yeah, it doesn't get easier. Going to Frankfurt in week five, I think they take a loss there.
I'm not as convinced with that one. I feel like Frankfurt is a team they can beat. I don't know what's going to happen with Frankfurt week one, but I'm not sold on Frankfurt. After what I saw last year, I'm not sold on Frankfurt at all.
Interesting. Week seven, how do you feel about them hosting the Kings? This is a must-win game for them.
Yeah. Again, this could be a win for them. The Kings have just been a bit messy since they came into the league. It's not their fault. They started a team out of nothing. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. They played all right last year. Had some games where they put up some decent numbers on offense, but I can't see them being Cologne. I think Cologne are going to take this just because they're a bit more of an established team. The players are more established.
Yeah, definitely. Then, unfortunately for Cologne, they jump right back into the gauntlet at Rhine Fire, at Hamburg. I think we know who we're picking there for weeks 8 and 9. Week 11, Daniel, do you think they could beat the Galaxy at home?
Yeah, I think they could. I do. Yeah, I do. Like I said, I think Frankfurt have returned a lot of the players they had last year, um, some of which I'm a fan of, but I just don't think the team in itself is that frightening. And I feel like Cologne. Do you know what I mean? And that's a good thing about playing Ryan Fire and Hamburg and Paris. Like you've played the best teams. Like that's where you sharpen your blade, right?
Hmm.
And so yeah, they could be ready for the Frankfurt game and they could win it.
Yeah, they probably know. I imagine the mood in that locker room is they have to be at their best because of how tough that division is, and that could pay off in these kind of interconference games, which leads into the next week, week 12, going to Leipzig. I think they get the win there. Um, these guys will be battle tested, having played Rhein Fire twice, Frankfurt twice, and Hamburg twice already at this point of the season. So I think they pick up their fourth win there. How do you feel about them hosting the Prague Lions?
Yeah, again, another one they could win. Yeah, so maybe the season isn't as bleak as I thought it was initially. Yeah, they could win Prague if they're playing at home as well. Maybe it's off the back of a win, and so, do you know what I mean? They're feeling good about themselves. So, yeah, I'm going to give them the win here.
That will be the last home game of the season, and we've seen the environment in Cologne be pretty good. I think they have a good, strong fan base there. Maybe overshadowed a bit by the Rhine Fire next door, but there's a strong football community in Cologne, no doubt. I mean, I remember in the first season of ELF watching Madre London highlights with a big crowd supporting him, and it looked really cool. So hopefully they can get back and win that game as their last home game in week 13. And then I think they fall to Paris week 14. I think Paris will be playing for the playoffs at that point in the last week, battling for seeding, while Cologne will be planning for 2024. So that puts them at 5-7 on the season via our predictions. So good luck to Cologne Centurions, and we hope you guys exceed our predictions. That was a weird ending.
That wasn't. It's fine.
It was okay. All right. Anyway, guys, that's the Cologne Centurions state of the franchise. Appreciate you guys watching. If you made it to this point in the video, please like and subscribe and rate our podcast anywhere that you listen. And tune in soon for our next episode.